Hello, everyone. Today I am here with the CEO of HZad Education, Shayan Zaidi, more commonly known as Sean, and we will be discussing the complete detail about the CELPIP test. How are you?
I'm doing good. How about you?
I'm very good. Thanks for asking. All right, let's get started. Can you give a brief overview of what the CELPIP test is and what it measures?
Sure. The CELPIP test is basically a test for immigrants who are trying to immigrate to Canada mostly. It could be used for other places too, but it's mainly for Canada. This is an English proficiency test, and it measures students on all areas of English language, mainly writing, reading, speaking, and listening. It tests them on their ability to speak fluently, write better, and it tests if immigrants can adapt to a country where the culture is, where the language is English. It's a struggle for a lot of people who have English as a second language, and CELPIP technically tests how much of the struggle will interfere in your day-to-day life in Canada or another English-speaking country.
Hmm. Okay. And what are the different components of the CELPIP test and how are they evaluated?
There are four main components. There's reading, listening, writing, and speaking. So reading and listening, they are considered easier than writing and speaking. One important reason for this is that they're marked by the computer, but writing and speaking are marked by human beings. That's where all the trouble comes in. So when we look at reading and listening, you can imagine that there's a listening audio, there's a bunch of questions, and there's an answer sheet. With reading, you have a bunch of passages, questions, answer sheets. You do the right answers. It's all multiple choice, by the way. So you can also use guesswork. Mark the answer, the computer marks it, and off you go. For writing and speaking, it's a little bit more complicated because they are marked by human beings. So that means you're speaking if one person doesn't like it, another person can. That's where all the trouble comes in, but we can get into that later. Same issue comes up with writing. Now, when we say writing, it's all online. Same thing with the speaking, it's recorded. The whole test is online. So you want to make sure when you're writing, your typing speed is really good. When you're speaking, you should be really clear in the microphone. And that's the whole exam. Yeah, these four components. In terms of difficulty, it's listening, reading, writing, and speaking. Speaking is the hardest, but these four modules comprise the whole exam.
Hmm. And how does the CELPIP test differ from other English proficiency tests, such as the IELTS?
Yeah, you know what? Good question. It's easier than most. It's way easier than IELTS. I've had a lot of people searching from IELTS to CELPIP. So this is something important for our candidates to understand. When people are doing IELTS and they need a 7 in IELTS, that usually translates to a 9 in CELPIP. If you are a candidate who needed a 6 in IELTS, that means a 7 in CELPIP. So that's first of all the score breakdown or equivalency. Now, people who struggle in IELTS writing, they're more than welcome to come to CELPIP because CELPIP writing is super easy. But if you're struggling in IELTS speaking, don't come to CELPIP because CELPIP speaking is a very hard module to complete. So here's where the issue comes in. IELTS, people are always failing in writing, and in CELPIP, people always fail in speaking. That's why a lot of people just spend money on IELTS, then spend some money on CELPIP, and they go back and forth between these exams. If you're still unsure, and let's say you have done half and half of both exams, generally, CELPIP is still considered easier. Speaking is tough, but overall, it is still considered easier. Now, if you're starting, you haven't done any of those exams, you don't know which one to do, again, do CELPIP. Overall, in every category, I would say CELPIP is better, generally. But if you're one of those people who is not very literate in computer skills, your typing speed is bad, and you even have difficulty navigating through online pages because you would have to click next, you would have to select questions. If you have difficulty doing that, maybe CELPIP is not for you. IELTS still has a paper-based version. It also has now the IELTS online version, which you can credit CELPIP for, because when CELPIP started all this online stuff, I think IELTS got the hint that they should move on with the modern times. But if you're not computer literate, better go for IELTS.
I see. And how do you recommend students prepare for the CELPIP test?
There's lots of resources online, and if you just search them, if you type CELPIP resources, CELPIP tips, tricks, one of the top companies that comes up online is us, HZad Education. I always encourage our students to go on our blogs, and I encourage them to go more on our websites than others, not because we want to win their competition. Of course, we want to do that, but online, there's a lot of places where the materials are just too easy. They're very misleading. There's some sample tests, some sample questions. Students look at that and they're like, this exam is so easy. I should just go ahead and book it. I'm going to pass. Then the reality hits, and it's actually very difficult. When you go on our website, when you go on our blogs, you go on my YouTube videos, the things we mentioned, the strategies we mentioned, the questions we have, the sample tests we have, they reflect the difficulty of the real exam. So in terms of the free resources, I would say check out HZad Education's blog and YouTube channels. If you have the time and the money to invest in lessons, which by the way are the cheapest lessons online, we send you our materials, we send you our course videos, recorded ones, as well as we have live sessions. So if you want to invest your money in that, that's where the real prep and the real progress comes in. Because not only do you get our resources, as you asked, the complex resources will be provided to you with a lot of strategies, techniques, shortcuts, and sample answers, good and bad answers, a whole complete breakdown of what you need to do for the CELPIP exam. We have a really popular course right now. It's the bestseller for CELPIP. It is a 15-hour course that includes materials on all modules, tips, tricks, strategies, everything you need to know. And it's only for $49. You can see it on our website. It also comes right now with free feedback. So this is something that nobody online can provide. And if students are just curious on about where they stand, what they need to do for the exam, this is one of the best offers out there. So I encourage people to check our paid resources. And if they don't want to pay, they can check out our free resources as well.
So that sounds great. What are some common mistakes that students make in the CELPIP test, and how can they avoid them?
There are lots of common mistakes, so that's a good question. I would say, for example, when we talk about reading and listening, I kind of want to prioritize writing and speaking more, and that's because most people fail there. So if I talk about reading and listening, it's just, just practice more. It just comes down to practice. When you're home, you can listen to a lot of YouTube videos. I suggest listening to native speakers and watching their interviews to make your listening better. For reading, there's lots of articles you can read, but my favorite is Guardian.com. So I would suggest go there, read a bunch of articles, and practice your reading. This is when you want to do free resources and you don't want to pay for material. So that's what you can do. I want to talk about speaking and writing more, because I'm sure our students want to hear about that. That's where majority of the mistakes happen. So for writing, it's a lack of structure, usually. That's the beginning point. How the paragraphing should be. Should it be one body paragraph, two or three? What those body paragraphs should be talking about. So it's usually a lack of structure. This is not that much in speaking, because in speaking, you have a 60-second topic, you have a 90-second topic. You do need a structure, but it's not that strict, because it's speaking, you can speak casually. So in that area, it's more about other things like expressions, emphasis. For example, I have students who have a very monotone answer when they are talking to a friend in their speaking conversation or test. So it's going to sound like this. Hey, Cece, I heard you bought a new car. I'm so excited for you. And that sounds so robotic. But it should be recorded with emphasis, with realistic human tone. So, hey, Cece, I heard you bought a new car. That is exciting news. So with emphasis. This is, again, something typical to speaking, not for writing. And that's where these two areas need to be given more focus. But the similarity in both areas and I mentioned this in one of my recent videos that people can check out on my YouTube channel, is the vocabulary and grammar. When it comes to the common mistakes, as you asked, the most common mistakes are vocab and grammar. Grammar is the biggest weakness for most students, and you can download a software like Grammarly to check out how many mistakes you make, or hire one of our teachers to help you with that. In grammar, it's just grammatical errors. I mean, I don't need to elaborate on that, using nouns, verbs incorrectly, parts of speech or tenses incorrectly. So improve grammar. That's the number one weakness I see. The second thing is vocabulary cannot be basic. So the words I would use with you, or I would use with my friends, I cannot use them in the exam. It's weird because I mentioned earlier it's an exam to test if you can mingle with people in day-to-day lives. But it's actually more complicated, because if you do use very ordinary language and if you use slang words, you will lose marks. So you need to use very advanced vocabulary, and people don't often do that. There's also layers to that, and that's going to be a whole lesson. And for that, again, people can go on my YouTube channel. I don't want to get into detail there. But when I say use advanced words, it also means using advanced sentences, a range of sentences. So some would be simple, some would be complex, some would have connectors in the middle of sentences, some would have connectors at the start. So this vocab and the range thing it's a whole different topic. So people can find more details on that on my YouTube videos. And we have, again, a much more comprehensive and detailed breakdown on my course, which also comes with examples, sample answers, on this whole topic of vocabulary. It's a 1 hour plus lesson. That's where a lot of issues come up.
Okay. And can you walk us through a typical CELPIP test day and what students can expect?
Sure. So you walk in there in a room with more than about 15 people. Yeah, about 15 to 20 people in the CELPIP test. You're separated, of course, so don't consider cheating because you won't see the other person's screen. Now, when you go in there, everything is online. You will have the computer in front of you, the microphone, and a piece of paper. And I want to emphasize it's just a piece of paper. It's not paper, so they don't give you a lot. You have to ask for that. When to use it, we'll get to that later. So you go in there in the exam. It goes up. I think it starts with your information. You need to enter your candidate number, etc. Pretty easy stuff to do. The first component you would be tested on is listening. So you put your microphone on. The instructions are always going to come before the actual audio. So you listen to the instructions, go through the audio parts. There are 6 parts in the listening section. In each part, you would listen to the audio first, then the questions appear. So you don't see the questions while the listening is going on, unlike IELTS. So if you're coming from IELTS, you'll be surprised, because in IELTS, you see the questions and the audio at the same time. Here, it's just the audio and questions come later. So what you're expected to do is remember what the transcript was, which is pretty impossible. And that's why you're given that one beautiful piece of paper. You're supposed to take notes there, write them down, whatever the audio was saying, as much as you can. You need to write fast. When the questions come, you look at your notes and answer the questions. Okay. If you run out of paper, which is very likely, you want to ask for more paper. So it's just one paper at a time, one sheet of paper. It's weird. But once you go through that, you are now going to be tested on reading. That's next. Reading has 4 parts. They're all to do with reading passages and answering questions. They're all multiple choice. Only reading part 2 does not have a passage. It has a picture. So you look at the picture has a bunch of items that are described. You have to study the picture and then answer the questions. Then we move on to writing. In writing, you get 2 tasks. The first task is letter writing, which is mostly formal, but it could be informal letters too. The next task is your essay. Each task is given about, I think, 24 minutes, if I'm not wrong. You're supposed to write between 150 to 200 words. Plus minus 10 words is okay, but I strictly prefer students stay at 180 words for task 1 and task 2. Okay, so you're given these 2 tasks that you have to type. Then you're given the speaking exam. That's with 8 questions. Now, in these 8 questions, you're tested on a bunch of things. You're given a topic, talk about this, talk to a friend about this, describe this picture, compare 2 pictures. It's a variety of topics. You're supposed to look at the topic, prepare. You will get some preparation time, usually from 30 to 60 seconds. Then you have to speak, and the speaking time, it's usually 60 to 90 seconds. So when you're doing this, there is a problem of distraction. People around you would be speaking all at the same time. And that is another stark contrast from IELTS. Because on IELTS, you go to a room with an examiner one-on-one. There's no noise. But here, when you're speaking, there's going to be noise. Okay. So there's other people talking while you're trying to record yourself, and that can be really distracting. One thing I suggest students to do at home is to play some background noise, like news, play some news in the background, because it's usually like that, someone talking, not music. Don't play that because it's not reflective of the real exam. And practice your speaking with some distractions, because that's what's going to happen on the exam date. Also, know that unlike IELTS and other exams, you will have the option to forward yourself to the next part. So if you're done reading faster than others, you can go to the next part. So you can be the first person to leave the room. And I don't recommend that. I don't recommend rushing. But because people will be at different paces, when you're writing, there might be someone speaking. So don't be intimidated by that. They're just clicking next faster. It does not mean that they're doing a better exam. Okay, you just focus on your own pace in that case.
Good to know. And what are some tips for improving writing skills in English for the CELPIP test?
I'm going to give a short answer, which is going to give people a foundation. But if they really want to study this in detail, check out our resources, go on my YouTube channel, check out all my writing videos. There are tons of them, and on our blog as well. Now, the shorter answer of this is improving your vocabulary and grammar. All right. These are the 2 things I mentioned at the start when you asked me what are some common mistakes people have in the CELPIP exam. So improving these 2 areas would be crucial. Vocab could be something as simple as learning 15 new words a day. Okay, you learn 50 new words a day. If your exam is 1 month away from now, you would have learned 450 words by that time. You would just need about 200-ish words from there in the actual exam, not even sometimes. And you can do this by going to our blog. We actually have a list of 400 best words for CELPIP. You can type on our blog, CELPIP best words to learn it from that word list. It's very useful because it applies to your exam situations, the kind of questions you get, those words apply to them. So improving your vocab is important, not only just the words, but also the range, understanding how to make long sentences, how to use connectors, and how to combine them with simple sentences. Once again, we have lessons for that too. So everything I'm talking about, we have lessons for all those things. So making sentences complex and using advanced words to improve your vocab. For grammar, I'm going to, again, say go to online resources like Grammarly if you don't want to pay any money. If you want to invest in grammar, you should go with live sessions. In this case, I would prefer live sessions more than the self-paced course, because the self-paced course that we have does not cover grammar in that much detail. Plus, grammar it varies from person to person. So we need to see your mistakes. The teacher needs to give you feedback and improve grammar. And when you do that, don't think of it as something for CELPIP. That is for your life. I mean, you would make grammar mistakes in public and in writing and speaking. You'll be embarrassed. So it's important for you to fix that area, not just for this exam. But you can use this exam as an excuse for your lifetime improvement. So improve those 2 areas. That's where people fail the most. But here's the biggest strategy. Use our templates. All right. In writing, our biggest source of success has been the HZad template. There are words and phrases that you can copy paste in every exam. They repeatedly give students great marks. I've had people who've scored 6 in writing, and their score has jumped by 3 points. They have gotten a 9 in the very next try. The only difference was the templates. Of course, there are other factors too, but the templates are huge. So I would recommend using our templates. They are on, again, our YouTube channel and our blogs. And in our self-paced course, you get a lot more detailed templates that you can actually use in every situation. So if you again have the time and the money to invest, it's only $49, by the way, you get a bunch more words, sentences, complex phrases that you can apply in every situation.
Can you give some advice on how to improve speaking skills for the CELPIP test?
Yes, I would first say again, going back to my previous point, just be natural. Don't be robotic. Speak to humans just like you would actually speak to your friends or family. They give you situations in the test, like speak to a friend, talk to a family member. So make sure you actually think of a real person. And this is big. I should have probably given a different tone to it because this is actually a very important tip. You know how people get nervous in the exam, and that's why it's like we do make a guarantee for their success, but it's really hard for us to do that and always say that 100% of our students pass, because it's not always the preparation you have, it's sometimes your thinking and your mental state in the exam. You go in the exam and you're nervous. That's something that's the most common thing with all students. So if you're nervous, you forget everything. It doesn't matter how much you prepared, you can forget a lot of good content. A really easy way to kill this is think that you're actually talking to a person. So if the question says you have to talk to your father or mother about this, think that that person is sitting in front of you. Use your imagination. Or if it says compare this car, buying the benefits of this car versus this bike, think that you're actually buying this car and you're a car guy or a girl, and focus on convincing someone from your perspective. Don't think of it like an exam. Okay. The only things you have to think about are the rules surrounding the exam. So you cannot talk more than the time limit, of course. You also have to focus on really good English, and that's where it gets troubling because you have to bring in all those components. But also you get a cheat, you get preparation time. In real life, you get no preparation time. So I always tell people you actually have it easier in the exam because you have all these resources and you have practiced beforehand for all of this. You know exactly what structure you have to talk in. So use all of those skills, first of all, to be confident. Don't be nervous. Secondly, once again, use our templates. Our templates are the gold mine of everyone who needs to do the CELPIP speaking test because it's the hardest module. If you use our templates, copy paste those words and phrases, it'll give you a great start, a great ending, so good first and last impressions. In the middle too, you have great connectors that will relate all your ideas. It's not just about the relation of the ideas and really linking all the structures well. That is what our template does. It also gives you marks for vocabulary because they're advanced words in our template. It also makes you finish on time, because if I have given you, for example, in part 2 speaking, if I've given you 2 connectors in the middle with the intro and conclusion, that means you can only say 2 points in the middle because it's only a 1 minute speaking. So you cannot say more than that. If I would have given you 5 connectors, you would be really confused on how to use it. So the templates, the way they're made, they're accurate and they keep you in time, they keep you focused and give you marks in all the areas. So I would say kill your nervousness and sound human, use our templates and practice. You know, practice is just not only for speaking, just with all modules, practice as much as possible.
And how can students use their CELPIP score to further their immigration or career goals?
CELPIP is needed for Canadian immigration. You can also use IELTS, but you can do that if you want to really get frustrated with repeat failures. CELPIP is much easier, so I always recommend that. When you are applying for your work permit, you would need your CELPIP scores for citizenship as well, and for immigration for your PR. So there's different pathways to Canadian immigration. Some people, depending on their CR's score, need only a score of 7. Those people are really lucky because they score well in education, job history, age, and all those things. So you're lucky if you just need a score of 7. But most people need a score of 9. And that's where the trouble comes, because CELPIP is out of 12. But to qualify, so basically 12 is perfection, but I like to say 9 is perfection, because when people score 9, those candidates are making almost no mistakes. So it's almost like you have to consider that this score is a perfect score, and you need a perfect score almost for your immigration. It is best to consult your immigration lawyer for this because everybody's file has a different background. So ask your ask your immigration lawyer about that. They can tell you better, but it is something you need to fulfill that application part where it says English proficiency. So you need to do the CELPIP exam. Everybody needs to do that for immigration, unless you're on a visitor visa.
Got it. And what resources do you recommend for students who are preparing for the CELPIP test?
I would say, again, go to our website, check our blog, and check out our YouTube channel for free resources. And if you want to get the best ones, the ones that are the most organized, check out our self-paced course. It is right now on a promotion, so check that out as well. If you want to send me an email, you can email me at info@hzadeducation.com. The link is always in our video descriptions. You'll be added to a free email list. We send out weekly emails, sometimes twice a week, with a bunch of free tips and resources. So with HZad Education, you can get a lot of resources. If you don't want to get resources from HZad Education, you can go online in other places, but there will be a risk because, as I mentioned earlier, most materials online are very easy and not reflective of the real exam. So check out what we offer, and you'll be surprised how similar that is to the real exam.
Can you share some success stories of students who have taken the CELPIP test and achieved their desired score?
Sure. It's interesting you asked that this today, because this week I've uploaded, I think, more than 6 results on YouTube and on our Google profile of students sending me their results and emails thanking us that, with your videos, with your course, this is what we achieved. We're very happy, and I'm very glad that we're able to make this difference in their lives, because it's huge. When I started this, I was like, this is just an English training program, but it's actually about changing lives, because when people pass their exam, it means they clear their immigration, and that means their whole family can come here. It means they can move on with their career and they can have a life in Canada. So it's huge what we do, and it makes me really happy to see these kinds of results. To check out our success stories, all you got to do is check out reviews on Google, on YouTube. Just check the comments of people constantly coming back after watching my videos, doing the exam, coming back and saying, we watched your videos and we scored this, this, and this. Huge improvement from what we had previously. So you see all those comments there. Go to our website. Under our course, you can see all the reviews. It's like, I think, sitting at 4.9 stars right now, which is, I didn't expect that when it started, but the course itself is content packed. You see all the success stories with the course on the website as well. And the screenshots I've uploaded all over online, they are with the real exam. So people can see easily the actual exam, the signature of the examiner, the date, and the scores. So it's all legit. And that's what we continue to deliver day after day.
That's great. And how do you approach teaching the CELPIP test to students with different learning styles and abilities?
Very good question. Okay, so I want to mention this because if you are an intermediate speaker, or your English is intermediate, speaking, writing, all areas, our self-paced course is a great place where you can upgrade your skills. But that is not for everybody who is, let's say, really weak. So as you asked Stacey, if someone's, let's say, really weak or super advanced, in that case, something like live sessions are the place you want to go to, because in live sessions, it's one-on-one, by the way. Our tutors assess you, they figure out what you need, and they cater to your personal score requirements and weaknesses. So for example, if someone is really weak on grammar, I'm not going to teach them templates, or my teachers won't do that. They're going to start with fixing the grammar first. If the grammar is weak, so let's imagine this, the grammar is weak, the student writes or speaks with very poor English, and then the templates are just great words the student is putting in, it wouldn't make sense to the examiner. That would look like there's something wrong happening here. So we would first need to improve the student's grammar. Once it's better, we would improve their templates and align everything together. But for someone who's really advanced, we would just make them more advanced, because you're never advanced enough for CELPIP. So we would teach them advanced phrases, vocabulary, expressions, emphasis when it comes to speaking. We'll make them practice difficult reading, difficult listening tests according to their level. And of course, we'll tone it down if it's the opposite.
Okay. And can you discuss some of the common challenges that students face when taking the CELPIP test?
One challenge that they self-impose is they book the test the next week. So rushing for your exam is a challenge that you don't need to impose, but I understand people have work permit deadlines and immigration deadlines, but you should not do that. You should take at least a month to prepare for CELPIP, because trust me, if you're doing this the first time, it's not just an English exam, it's very challenging. And if you have done it before, you know exactly what I mean. So don't rush it. Don't impose that challenge on yourself. The other challenges that people have, because mostly my students are adults, so they would have issues like work. They're coming after work. They don't have the energy to study. In the weekends, they want to go out with their family, which I understand. But you got to make some sacrifices. You got to wake up some nights and study hard until your exam is cleared. So learning to make sacrifice is a big challenge for them too. Another challenge for not my customers, I'm proud to say that, is people getting really confused online when they go to 10 million channels and look at 10 million different answers. The same thing happens in every place. If you work out, there are videos on you should eat eggs and you should not eat eggs. And there's even videos on you should not drink water, but it's common knowledge that you should drink water. So people get really confused going through all these online resources. I would suggest stick with someone or something that has worked. Our thing works, as again, you can see with our online reviews and what people have to say. So trust us and go with everything we're saying. I would say blindly believe in us. That's what I'm going to say. Big claim, but I'm saying that because what we do here works. And if you don't want to follow us, you want to follow our competitor, that's fine. Just make sure you stick with one person. Don't go with multiple resources, because that's a challenge where people get really confused.
How can students manage stress and anxiety while preparing for and taking the CELPIP test?
I would say, again, don't think of the bigger picture. It's an ironic advice, but it's important, because this is just an English exam, but we know that a lot of people's lives depend on it. So they're thinking about, if I don't clear this, I'm not going to get my immigration. If I don't clear this, my life is done. I would have to go back to my country. Don't think about the bigger picture in this case, because that's going to cause stress and anxiety. Just focus on the small steps. What you have to do for today. Do you have a target? You want to learn 50 new words. You want to write 5 practice writing tests. You want to get feedback on 2 speaking tests. Focus on the goal for that day. Give yourself ample time as well. So you have enough goals, let's say for a month of preparation. This will give you enough time, enough steps to make sure you're ready for the exam date. And when you go in the exam, again, just think of it like an English test, something we all did in school. We all do in offices sometimes with our tests, like a driver's license test. When we fail that, we don't think our life is done, right? We think we can still take the bus. But in this case, we kind of overthink. We're like, our immigration, our life depends on this question and answer. So don't exaggerate it. Just focus on the task at hand. And if you have enough preparation, that's where the confidence comes in. If you have really prepared, given yourself enough time, taken a proper coach, you should have no worry or stress at all. One other thing I would say is, on our YouTube channel, there's a great community of people who help out each other. So if students want to contact each other, and they have in the past, they can pair up, they can speak with each other, they can send each other writing samples. Why do I say this? Is because this will help them analyze themselves. They will know what score they might get. And this is a free way to do it. And that might just give you more confidence. If you want to invest again in our lessons, you can ask us to give you feedback, of course, during our classes. When we say you're going to get a 9, you will get a 9. When we say you're going to fail, you will fail. So our assessments are pretty accurate. If you want that confidence, that surety of what score you're going to get, you can also ask us for feedback with our paid lessons.
Good to know. And how do you help students overcome language barriers and build to their confidence in English?
Okay, very good question. This is where the human component comes in, and my teachers are very good at doing that. There's a lot of encouragement that we have to give the student, and it's not fake encouragement. It's not like, go ahead, you can do this, I believe you. It's based on real progress. So we would have a plan for them, and that plan would first give them surety that, all right, this is something that I can see myself doing in the next few weeks, and I can see myself progressing with this. When they actually do everything that we're telling them to do for homework and classwork, they show up to the class on time, do all their homework, they see actual progress. We tell them, here's where you are now. This is where you were last week. Look at how much progress you have made. This is what we want to achieve in the next few weeks. So it's a whole way or path of positivity, and we get them in that level so they are not, again, overthinking, as you said before, having that stress or anxiety. So we have to use their mental strengths, turn their weaknesses into strengths based on real results, and not just, rah, and you can do this, based on real results. But when students don't follow what we say, and of course I understand, there are people working, they have obligations, etc., then we have to use a warning system. So that's where, hey, why didn't you do your homework? Oh, because I had this, and this. All right, if you don't do your homework in the next few classes, then this will happen to your exam. You might derail this, your immigration might be at risk. Then we kind of have to scare them more, but that's effective because you get back on track. So sometimes you have to be strict, but mostly we prefer being encouraging if the student continues to really cooperate with the teacher.
How do you stay up to date with changes and updates to the CELPIP test, and what resources do you use?
Good question. So among all the teachers I have at least one teacher going in and doing the actual exam every 3 months. Usually, if there's a major change in CELPIP, it's going to happen after a year or many years, but we do it every 3 months to see what's going on these days. So a recent change we noticed was, it didn't come from a teacher, it actually came from a student who said almost 2 years ago that instead of 4 reading passages, I'm getting a 5th one. And then I heard it from another student, and I was like, what's going on? And now that's happening. You get an extra passage, which is not marked, by the way. That's just for testing purposes. So we hear about a lot of these changes from our students. Our students love to tell us how their exam went, and we appreciate that. We tell them, hey, if you can tell us what the question was in the exam, we can share it with other students. They can prepare with that question. So our students are our biggest resource. They themselves will come back and tell us, hey, teacher, this is what I got in the exam, or this is what shocked me, etc. That's where we get weekly output, because they do exams weekly. But then again, I would send one of our teachers 4 times a year to check on the exam itself.
Can you share any tips or tricks for time management during the CELPIP test?
Again, very interesting you're asking this today, because last week we uploaded a blog on time management for CELPIP. So again, people can check that out. The most important thing about time management is don't rush it. Don't try to click next, and be the first person out of the room. So give everything time. For listening, you don't have strict time management, because the computer will tell you exactly what time you're supposed to use. So when the audio is playing in the listening section, you want to take notes, and then you answer the question. When you answer the questions, give it all the time you have. For example, a multiple choice question will appear on the screen for 15 to 30 seconds. Answer the question, but also don't click next. I don't prefer that. It's better you stay there and proofread. Just make sure, is that really the answer? Because sometimes people change it. So you want to stay there and make sure of that. So in listening, don't try to click next. Just use the exact time that they have given you. I would say the same thing for reading too. Reading, you're given the time, you're given the passage and questions. The only tendency is for people to click next and hurry up with the exam. If you want to do it for part 2, it's okay. Part 2 is usually a very quick part, because it's just a picture, it's not a passage. So you might finish that fast, but parts 1, 3, and 4, give it all the time you have. When it comes to writing, we have a very good breakdown. So you have about 24 to 26 minutes for each writing part. Give 2 to 3 minutes at the start to write an outline. The rest of the time should be writing, and the final 2 to 3 minutes should be proofreading. That's important. So when you do the first 2 to 3 minutes, brainstorming, you make sure you're not going to go off topic. The last 2 to 3 minutes, you proofread. You'll be surprised how many mistakes people find. So make sure to have that time. That's super important. When it comes to speaking, again, in speaking, you don't really control your time. You have the preparation time and you have the speaking time. So here in the preparation time, just prepare mentally, don't take notes. For example, people have 30 seconds to read the question and prepare. That is not enough to take notes as well. So you have to basically read the question, think, take notes in 30 seconds. That's impossible to do. So we have people usually taking notes and the time has already started and they're still taking notes. Or even if they have taken notes, they're looking here, they're looking at the screen, and their thoughts are, it's like too much multitasking. So I wouldn't say take notes while you're using your time to prepare. In the preparation time, just use your mental notes, because in real life, you don't speak to people using notes. So just mentally prepare in that preparation time. Yeah, in the speaking time, when we talk about time management there, you want to start right away. As soon as the recording time starts, don't stall. When people do that, they lose marks. Because if the speaking time is 1 minute, you start after 10 seconds, the examiner knows you're trying to dodge the time. So that doesn't work. Start right away. And you can try to finish 5 seconds before the actual finish time. So if it's 60 seconds, finish at 55. Because when you target 55, you will always end up at 56 or 57. I still do that. I still cannot hit 55. So always target 5 seconds in advance. So you at least finish on the exact time.
And how do you evaluate student progress and determine areas for improvement in their CELPIP preparation?
If they are taking our live sessions, that's where we do it really effectively. So at the start, we're going to set a plan. Every week, we need to accomplish this in order to get you to reach your score. It's not based on one plan that everybody else gets forwarded. It's not the same email we forward everybody. That's why we do a trial session. It's a free 45-minute session. We'll see the student and say, okay, you are at a 7. You need a 9. Okay, you need 5 weeks to do that, for example, if you're not rushing. Do 3 classes a week. This is what you have to do for homework. This is what you have to do for classwork. Now, when they're on this plan, if they're following everything, improvement is natural. We usually don't see any surprises. We know what is expected. We know the student would make these many grammar mistakes or whatever vocab mistakes, etc. So we expect that, and that's already built into the plan. If something comes up that is out of the ordinary, we just have to include more tasks to fill in the gaps. Simple as that. So if we notice that some students are a little slow, of course, right? So they understood the templates, the next class they used it, which is, by the way, it doesn't always work in the next class. It usually takes 2 to 3 classes to really be an expert in the template, but it's taking you 5 classes to be an expert in the template. Now we have to change either the template or we have to redo our lesson on the templates for you to help you understand. So everybody adapts differently. And based on your progress, we would have to change the plan we have for you. We would have to change the deadline instead of saying, okay, we wanted 5 weeks, but it's taking more time. Let's do 7 weeks. We would change the deadline or we would change the curriculum. But it's usually rare. Usually when we have a plan, 80% of the time, so 8 out of 10 students would be on that plan easily, comfortably, without major changes.
Can you discuss the role of technology in CELPIP test preparation?
The role of technology is just, it's not that advanced. There are some exams which have artificial intelligence checking your speaking and writing, which I prefer, honestly, because examiners have different opinions as humans. So we're not there yet. Unfortunately, it is subjective when it comes to marking your speaking and writing. That's where technology hasn't been that advanced in CELPIP yet. But for reading and listening, it's marked by the computer. In terms of what you need to know for the technology is you just need to be good at basic computer functions, going in the exam, typing in your answers, clicking next, being able to scroll up and down for your reading passages, being able to click again next or back and clicking submit. Very, very basic things, which most people nowadays know. You just need to be good in that in terms of technology.
Great. Thank you so much for your time today.
So,
And if you are taking the CELPIP exam, be sure to check out all the great resources we have at www.hzadeducation.com.